Fantasy from the Fairway, the return for the AT&T Byron Nelson. We are by ourselves this week. Jenkins Jr. the third might or might not have put in his 2 weeks. It's unconfirmed, but we definitely know he's not here today taking some PTO. We do have his picks. We'll get to that at the end, but it was a full field rank by yours truly this week. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. He had a banner week last week. For those of you that watched our video last week, very few people told you to play Rory McIlroy at his price. He was one of them. He was high on Rory. He was not very high on Jon Rahm. That worked out for him. So a lot of good calls by him last week. He had some others he texted me, but he's not here to defend himself, so he's not getting any love. That's the way it is. Anyway, we're on the AT&T. Byron Nelson. Those are the picks from last week. Bubba Watson. I'd love to get his thoughts on Bubba Watson due to the fact that Bubba was in a top 10 spot and then went in the water on, I believe, 17 was the hole with water, the par 3, shooting him down to 18th on the leaderboard. But Jenkins Jr. retakes the lead. Brendan Steele nearly had a Bryson situation. He was way out of the cut line. He was at the same score as Bryson, got pulled back in, and then proceeded to be bad. Brendan Steele was a desperation pick, though, last week. Let's be honest. Nobody really thought that was going to happen. Taylor Gooch, T26, Payne. And Ricky Fowler got cut for the Jenks Jr. top 25. This remains the same. It's pretty up there with Abe and Casey. My dudes were just better than his dudes, but somehow I'm losing. There may or may not be some cheating going on with that. But we're off to TPC Craig Ranch in McKinney, Texas. Had to update it for a while. It looked like it was going to be par 71. It was going to play to par 72, so an extra par 5 versus a really, really long par 4, which will make the scoring a whole lot easier. This will be the first time a PGA Tour event was hosted at TPC Craig Ranch. It did host the Korn Ferry Tour Finals in 2008 and 2012, otherwise known as the Web.com Tour Finals at the time. So we really have no idea what's going to happen here. Keystroke wise, these are your previous 3 winners. Obviously, COVID last year, Sung Kang and Aaron Wise, but it doesn't really carry any weight because it's a whole different golf course. I looked at the par 4 efficiency, 400 to 450 yards, because one thing we do know is most of the par 4s will play in that area. Par 4 birdie or better, there's a lot of par 4s. Probably should score on them. And then we just did approach and putting and driving accuracy. All will be important. So we'll start it off 10K and above. You will see there is no Dustin Johnson on here. We had to pull him off, and that is due to the fact he is withdrawn due to a knee injury. So that is something to watch. Obviously, next week, an important week for Dustin Johnson. So I don't know at this point if it was precautionary or what, but he will not be in this week. So do not draft the most expensive player on DraftKings because he's going to get 0 points. We start with Jordan Spieth. There's no reason not to have him at the top. 21st in approach, 22nd, par 4s in the area scoring. So we like Jordan. We like Daniel Berger. He's top 23 in 4 of the 5 stats we looked at. He's the cheapest high-range player available. So we like Daniel Berger. Hideki Matsuyama, I have him at 3rd because he's way too cheap after winning the Masters. However, he hasn't played since he won the Masters. Now, there's a couple ways to look at that. One, he's rested. But I worry with all the travel because we know he went back to his homeland of Japan to celebrate, which is all good for him. But that's a lot of travel. Who knows what his schedule has been looking like? Who knows how much golf he's been playing? Obviously, it didn't work for Jon Rahm, who just had a kid, and obviously last week was not that good because he said he hadn't been playing that much golf. So I wonder about that with Hideki, but I still like him above Jon Rahm and Bryson here. Jon Rahm, it's a thing for me. He played a lot better in the second round last week, but it still wasn't enough to make the cut at 11,000. I think it's risky. I really like him probably next week because he'll get all the kinks out these last 2 weeks and be ready for the PGA. And Bryson at 11 too. I just think there's better value in Berger and Spieth and likely Hideki. So that's how we have the 10K and above. Let's roll to the 9K. Got to flip the page. Start with Brooks. I got Brooks thumbs down here, but in the brown thumbs down, which means kind of thumbs up, but thumbs down. He's top 10, 3 of the 5 stats we looked at. However, he hasn't really played golf since February. He played at the Masters, but that doesn't really count. So it's really hard to know what you're going to get in Brooks. Obviously, he's going to be locked in next week. So I think this is a week where you sit and don't play Brooks and wait, see what happens. Hopefully he looks healthy, but doesn't make the cut. So you get the cheapest possible value next week at the PGA, where he has to be a favorite just because of who he is. Zalatoris is next in the price. We don't love, we don't hate Zalatoris. We don't have him on the graphic. He's tied 17th par fours in the area. He's 4th on approach. He's a really bad putter, and he's been bad recently by his standards. At the price of 9,700, I'd probably stay away from Zalatoris just because I like Matt Fitzpatrick a lot at 9.5. He's top 71 in all the stats we looked at. He's had 4 top 10s in his last 6 starts on tour. He's been really good in America so far this year. If I hadn't picked him already once, I might consider picking him to win this week. But Fitzpatrick is a big thumbs up this week. Scotty Scheffler's next. He's tied 5th in par 4 birdie or better. He finished 29th at Valspar. He's a Texas guy, so I assume he's played this course before. Of course, that's unconfirmed. Don't love him, don't hate him. Think he's playable, but didn't care enough, feel strongly enough about him to put him on a graphic. Sam Burns is next, fresh off a win at the Valspar. I guess not fresh off, but 1 week off. We like Sam Burns at 93. 2nd par 4 birdie or better, 17th on approach, 22nd in putting, and obviously he won the Valspar. He's in good form. Sam Burns definitely playable. Leishman's next. Leishman's interesting per the usual. Stats, awful. However, he won the Zurich with Cam Smith. He was really good at the Masters before that. So we don't know. He has played here. He is one of the few that played in the Korn Ferry Tour finals and fared decently. I believe it was a top 20 finish, but that was obviously a very long time ago. He's an option. I just don't love him. I don't hate him. Ryan Palmer's next. He's top 65 in 4 of the 5 stats we looked at. He's been good all year. $9,100 seems pretty cheap for Palmer this week. I'll definitely ride with some Ryan Palmer. And the boy Sergio is next at $9,000 even. Jenks Jr. is not here. He sent me his picks without me telling him who I liked and who I disliked. So when we get to this point, remember what I said about Sergio. His last made cut was at the Players. He is from Texas, though, so he's probably played here. Or not from Texas, but he lives in Texas. I'm just not feeling it at $9,000 for Sergio this week. Let's roll that 8K. Jason Day, speaking of guys that haven't made a cut since the Players' Championship, he's one of them. He's 160th par 4 birdie or better, 132nd in par 4s in the area. Stay away from Jason Day at 8,900. Siwoo Kim, I'm all about it, 8,800. 16th par 4s in the area, tied 69th nice on approach. His worst finish in his last 4 starts, 33rd. Take that. Harris English is next. He doesn't make the graphic, but he is top 73 in 4 out of the 5 stats we looked at. He's made 4 out of his last 5 cuts. You could play Harris, but 87 seems pretty steep right now for him. However, you'll realize this field is really top heavy and it kind of flattens out. We'll get to that point in a bit. Thomas Peters is at $8,600 for some reason. His last 4 PGA Tour / European Tour starts, he has top 15 finishes in all of them. How will that translate? I don't know. But that's just what it is. Lee Westwood, since his back-to-back second place finishes that you remember at Arnold Palmer and TPC, he's gone 117th, 60th, and then 62nd. Going to stay away from Lee at that point. Luke List, also in the 8K range this week, 205th putting, 126 par 4 birdie or better, 193rd par 4s in the area. I'm going to have to stay away from Luke List. Aaron Wise, for some reason, is in this range, I guess because he won this event before and was decent last week. He's 200th on tour and putting. His scoring stats are not good. Stay away from Aaron Wise. Matt Kuchar is next to $8,200, your second player, I guess, under the average. Kuchar plays the par 4s in the area, 5th best on tour, 2 top 20s in his last 3 starts, including he had a 3rd at the WGC Workday, or the WGC Match Play, I should say. We like Kuchar this week. I think he's a sleeper. Really, really like Kuchar this week, actually. Next up, we got Charles Schwartzel at $8,100. I think that's way too much. Keith Mitchell is usually on the thumbs down graphic. He does good once every little bit. And then I'm always like, dang, I thumbs him down. I'm going to do it again. He's outside the top 104 of the 5 stats I looked at. Was it a fluke last week? Most likely, but let's find out. Cameron Champ is the worst putter on tour as well. So I'm going to stay away from Cam Champ at $8,000. Let's go to the 7K. 7K, we're going to hit the highlights for you, as well as the 6K. Like I had to go through all these dudes, and some I like, some I don't. I think Noren, who starts off the 7K, 79, is playing better. You could take a flyer on Alex Noren. Taylor Gooch at 79 as well as playable. I don't feel strongly enough to put him on the graphic, but I think they're both options. Carlos Ortiz is next. That's $7,800, which is who I want to talk about. I don't like Carlos, although I usually do. However, his best finish since the WGC workday is 65th. It's not very good. And that's been 4 different starts. 119th at the Players, 77th Masters, 84th RBC, 65th last week, who was looking decent before he shot a final round 79 and totally ruined my DraftKings. But that is what it is. Ortiz is going the wrong direction right now. I can't advocate for playing him. Ricky Fowler, obviously not. Peter Uihlein. Somebody explain to me why the man Uihlein gets to be $7,600 for being good on the Korn Ferry Tour. Like moderately good. Like he won in April. And then before that, he missed the cut. On the PGA Tour, he's done nothing. I don't get this, but it is what it is. Don't play Peter Uihlein. Camilo Villegas is the next person we're going to talk about. $7,500. The other week, we really liked Camilo, and he had to withdraw from the Wells Fargo for an undisclosed reason. Oh boy, don't know what that is. But we liked him then. We like him now. His last 3 starts, he's finished 17th, 25th, and 11th. He's 47th on approach, 49th par 4 birdie or better. He's been sneaky. He's on the come up. His salary not too long ago was low 6K, and he's on the come up now. So we messed with Camilo this week. Doug Gim is another guy in this price point at $7,500. He should be fine. He's on the down. He was on the up. Now he's on the down hard. But he should make this cut. Brent Snedeker is next at $7,400. You like Brent? He finished 6th at Valero and 11th at Valspar. He's 74th on tour, par 4s in the area, 77th putting. So he's decent. He's playing better. And remember, in the grand scheme of things, we think we know what the stats are going to be like, but we have no idea what actually is going to be the key stats. But what we do know is he's been good recently. And I would ride with that over the stats we believe we might have, although his stats are not horrible. So we mess with Snedeker for sure. Ryan Moore is next. Par 4s in the area. He plays him 203rd. So I can't advocate for that, obviously, because that is one stat we do know, that the par 4s are going to play in that area. And when you're bad at it, it's not a good start. Patton Kizzire, top 104 out of the 5 stats. He's been bad recently. You know how we feel here about Kizzire, but $7,300. I can't. He's playable, but I can't advocate and tell you to do it. Sepp Straka, another guy we want to talk about, $7,300. Scoring is good. He's made his last 5 cuts. Definitely playable for sure. Sepp Straka. Doc Redman makes the graphic. Here's why. I'll explain it to you. He's 8 for 16 this year on cuts, which doesn't sound good, and it's not very good. I'll tell you right now. But here's what Doc's up to. He makes the cut at the Arnold Palmer. He then misses the cut at the Players Championship. He then makes the cut at the Valero Texas Open and misses the cut at the RBC Heritage. He then makes the cut at the Valspar and then misses the cut at the Wells Fargo. So what does that mean? He's obviously going to make the cut this week. There's no other way around it. He's been going back and forth since March. Since March, he's had this plan. So I see him. I caught on. I got you, Doc. We'll roll with Doc this week because obviously he makes the cut due to whatever you want to call that, stats. Tom Hogue, don't call me Hoagie. Tom Hoagie is next. He's top 100 in all the stats. He's $7,200. We'll roll with Hoagie, I mean. Jonathan Vegas, we're going to talk positive about for a second. He likely makes this cut, which is not something we usually say. 20 plays the par fours in the area, 27th. Not bad. He likely makes this cut. Wesley Bryan, he's top 84 and 4 of the 5 stats we looked at $7,100. We like Wes Bryan. The only thing he doesn't do is hit the fairways very well, and I'm not even so sure on how that's going to play. But we like Wes Bryan. He's on the come up. Had a good finish, couple good finishes recently. 25th at the RBC Heritage, and then he made the cut at Valspar. But we like Wes Bryan at 7,100. And this guy, we want to talk about this guy, Vincent Whaley. Vincent Whaley has made 14 out of 19 cuts on tour this year. Has anyone ever considered playing this dude? Plays the par fours in the area, tied 44th. He's made 7 straight cuts. We never, ever talk about this dude. And the finishes aren't bad. His last 4 finishes, 28th, 34th, 29, 26. He's averaging like 60 DraftKings points per event. We didn't put him on the graphic, so that's an exclusive. You got to be listening to hear that one about Whaley. But it's an interesting. We've never talked about the dude. I guess I usually just skim past him, but turns out he doesn't suck. So that's cool. Before we go to the 6K, I see it. I got to address it. Tom Lewis, I advocated for you, dog. I said Tom Lewis is going to have a very good week this week. And this was on last week's episode of Fantasy from the Fairway. I said, don't worry, he's got it. You can play Tom Lewis. Tom Lewis went on to finish in 94th after a 75 and a 71. I got played. I got played by Tom Lewis. That's what happened. It's unfortunate because I thought I was onto something. But as it turns out, Tom Lewis, bad. Here's the 6K. And like I said, it goes downhill quick. There are not a lot of good options in the 6K, in my opinion. Not a lot. KH is always a good option, though. It's always a good time if KH Lee's invited. Love KH. 4 straight made cuts, 62nd par fours in the area, 87th par 4 birdie or better. It's always a good time with KH Lee. You got to have him in your lineup. You got to. He's making this cut. Roger Sloan, we're doubling down. We had him a couple weeks ago. We said guaranteed Sloan, going to be fire, the Canadian, I believe. Yes, the Canadian. And he missed the cut. However, he made the cut at the Wells Fargo. He's 30th on approach, 77th par 4 birdie or better, 26 par 4s in the area. Sloan, we're doubling down. This guy's making the cut, guaranteed. John Huh, we usually don't talk about John Huh, but we're going to today in like a relative term, I guess you could say. His last couple starts, 69th, 142nd, 69th, nice, 142nd and 114th. We can't ride with Huh. We also can't ride with Sam Ryder. You see what I did there? His last, he did finish second at the Punta Cana back in March, but since then, 137th, 98th, and 141st last week. Stay away from Ryder. Spankin' Hankin Laboda, by the way, is going to be in the 6'9" range as well. We can't advocate for Spankin' Hankin right now because I couldn't put 3 $6,900 golfers. Nice, $6,900 golfers on the graphic, but Spankin' Hankin is right there. He finished 13th at the Valspar, 51st at Wells Fargo, back-to-back made cuts. This guy's a father now. This guy is still spanking, still hanking. Spankin' Hankin Laboda. So playable at 69, but in order, it's always a good time with KH in the lead. Roger Sloan, the Canadian, second, followed by Spankin' Hankin. But honestly, I'm probably going to enter some kind of lineup that has all 3 of them. So that's how you know how I feel. Let's keep moving down. Rafa Cabrera Bello, we have yet to advocate for him on this show. It's not going to start now. Let me see if I can get those finishes. Here we go. His last couple, 114th, 134th, 56th on the European Tour, 44th, 114th, 106, 59, 123. Should I go on? I shouldn't. And that's the last thumbs down guy we got because everybody else is pretty much just, it is what it is. I mean, some of these 6K golfers are going to make the cut. I just can't tell you. I'm pretty sure Chesson Hadley's not going to be one. Ted Potter Jr. was very, very close to making the thumbs up graphic. However, he was bad last week per the usual, but he did finish 18th at Valspar, so keep an eye on Ted Potter Jr. if you have to. But keep an eye on JJ Spawn. He makes the graphic, I know, right? Weird. Finished 18th at the Wells Fargo last week. He got only reason he was in that field is because Brendan Todd tested positive for COVID-19. JJ replaced him. Now is in the field this week. And here's the thing. He's not horrible at playing the par fours in the area. Not horrible. I didn't say good, but not horrible. Spawn, $6,600. Let's go to the 4 to 6-0, and we're pulling for straws here, folks. Van Pelt, maybe at 64. He's made his last 2 cuts. If that's all, I mean, if that's what you got, that's what you got. Ledesma is next. We like Ledesma. We haven't talked about him in a while because he hasn't been very good. However, he plays the par fours in the area, tied 37th best on tour. He's 80th putting. So, I mean, he's not horrible at it. He can physically do it. But that's about it. Van Pelt, looking back on it, I guess I should say he's made 4 of his last 5. However, his best finish is 34th, which wouldn't be bad for, his price. At 63, the last time out for Ledesma, he finished 16th at the Simmons Bank Open for the Snedeker Foundation. That is on the Corn Ferry Tour, folks, but hey, it still counts for something. On the PGA Tour, his last made cut was the Puerto Rico Open. However, yes, that was in February. I'm with you. However, he's only played 4 times since then, twice on the tour. So he's been busy. Nelson's been busy doing whatever it is Nelson does. And yeah, I really wouldn't bother with anybody else, but it's your call to make. So we are to the picks. I will find the picks I was sent by none other than Jenkins Jr. the third. Here he is. Aha. We've come to him. So we'll start with Jenkins Jr. and we'll let you know he has picked somebody I have already taken to win, and that is Sergio Garcia. Now, like I said, when we talked about the 9K range, I was not super hype about Sergio Garcia because he's $9,000. And I just think that's too much for Sergio right now. I don't think it's a horrible pick. I think Sergio likely makes the cut. I just don't – I mean, he could miss the cut, but I just don't see anything outstanding from Sergio this week. I could be wrong. But, hey, look, Jenkins Jr. obviously knows what he's doing over me. He's winning at FedEx Cup points. He's winning in top 25, and somehow he has PTO time. And I have none, as I'm here burning the midnight oil at 6:09 p.m. This is the first time Fantasy from the Fairway has been done in the daylight for a while. Unfortunately, it's raining, so I can't have the window open to let the people know that it's daylight and not like 2 in the morning. But that has nothing to do with anything. Sergio Garcia is who Jenkins Jr. has picked to win. For his top 25, he's taken Seabass Munoz. Munoz, a Texas guy. I see what he did here. He picked 2 Texas guys. He said they probably know the golf course. I'm sure that's why he picked them, obviously. Sergio living in Austin, which is not anywhere near the course, but, you'd assume he's played there. Seabass went to North Texas, I believe. I have no idea where that is. It's north of Texas would be my best guess on that. But Munoz won me a lot of money back in the day. He was a 6K flat golfer on one of the FedEx Cup events and finished like 6th. Won a lot of money that day. Sebastian Munoz did that. So I'm pulling up my DraftKings lineup for this week that I have. And like I said, really like Fitzpatrick. However, I've picked Fitzpatrick. I really like Daniel Berger. He's in my lineup as well. But I'm not going to pick either of those guys. KH Lee is in my lineup as well. It's always a good time with KH. Ghost in here or something. But so for my pick to win, I'm going to go with Siwoo Kim. I believe it or not, have not picked Siwoo yet this year, but I'm going to pick him now at $8,800. Siwoo Kim, he's been good recently. It's a boom or bust pick, but I think we're going to see some boom. However, he might miss the cut, and next week we'll have something to talk about. Top 25, I'm going with the boy Sneds. Like I said, these are two guys that I'm feeling. Snedeker's been good recently. Siwoo's been good recently. So that's what we're banking on this week. There it is on a full screen. That's what we're banking on, both of those guys to continue being good. They are both in my DraftKings along with Berger, Fitzpatrick, KH Lee, and Seth Straka's in there right now. We might have to make some moves on that. But so those are the picks for the Byron Nelson. And that'll do it. Fantasy from the fairway. Like we said, we don't know if Jenks put in his 2 weeks, if it's like a solo operation now, or if it's just some PTO time. We hope he's back next week for the PGA Championship. If not, we'll do it again sometime next week, probably on Monday, since it's PGA big week. We'll get that out earlier. But nevertheless, that'll do it for Jenks Jr., who is not here and didn't do anything but send in a pick for myself. That'll do it. Fantasy from the fairway. Like, subscribe. Thank you for the support. For those that have continued to watch, we'll talk to you next week.